Before the fateful night that brought Troy to its knees, my father, Odysseus, had spent 10 long years fighting in the war against the Trojans. One night, as he told me years later, the goddess Athena visited him in a dream. She spoke in riddles, her voice echoing through his slumber. Odysseus, son of Laertes, the key to conquering Troy lies within a horse not of flesh and blood. Seek the hidden strength in wood. He awoke puzzled, the words swirling in his mind like a storm at sea. The next day, he wandered the Greek camp and saw a soldier carving a small wooden horse for his son, a toy, a symbol. Suddenly it clicked. A massive wooden horse, hollow within, could conceal warriors and deceive the Trojans into bringing it inside their walls. With this revelation, he rallied the Greek leaders, and Epeus, a master carpenter, built the beast in just 3 days. Odysseus handpicked his bravest men, Diomedes, Menelaus, and others, and they climbed inside, sealing their fate to the plan. They left Sinon behind to spin a tale for the Trojans, convincing them the Greeks had abandoned their siege. That was the beginning, the spark of cunning that would ignite Troy's downfall. The deception and fall of Troy. Imagine being trapped inside a wooden horse, your breath shallow, your heart pounding like a war drum, surrounded by enemies who could slaughter you with a single misstep. Picture the weight of an entire war resting on your silence, the air thick with sweat and fear, every creak of the wood threatening to betray you. This was the reality my father, Odysseus, and his men faced as they waited within the belly of the Trojan horse, poised to strike at the heart of Troy. One sound, one whisper, and all would be lost. This is the story he told me, a tale of courage, deception, and the moment that changed everything. The sun hung low over the horizon that day, casting long shadows across the plains of Troy. The Greeks had vanished, their ships gone from the shore, leaving only the towering wooden horse as a parting gift, or so the Trojans believed. My father said the plan had been a gamble from the start. Inside the horse, he and his warriors crouched in darkness, their armor clanking softly against the rough-hewn planks. The space was tight, the air stale, and the heat unbearable. Diomedes shifted beside him, his spear scraping the wood, and Odysseus shot him a glare sharp enough to pierce steel. "Silence!" he hissed, his voice barely a breath. Every man understood. Their lives and the war itself depended on it. Outside, the Trojans roared with triumph. Father told me he could hear their cheers through the horses' walls, drunken shouts, the clatter of carts, the rumble of hooves as they dragged the massive structure toward their city. The horse lurched with each pull, jolting the men inside. Menelaus gripped his sword tighter, his knuckles white, while Anticlus, a young warrior with a nervous edge, fidgeted beside Odysseus. "Steady," my father whispered, his hand resting on the man's shoulder. He knew the Trojans were inspecting their prize, debating its meaning. Sinon, left behind as part of the ruse, was out there weaving his lies, claiming the horse was an offering to Athena, a plea for safe passage home for the Greeks. The Trojans, weary and eager for peace, swallowed the story whole. The journey into Troy was agonizingly slow. The horse rocked and swayed, its wooden frame groaning under the strain. Inside, the men held their breath as the gates of Troy creaked open, a sound Father described as both a relief and a terror. The Trojans hauled the horse through the streets, past homes and temples, their voices rising in celebration. Children laughed, women sang, and men boasted of their triumph over the Greeks. Odysseus listened, his mind racing. He knew the plan was working, but he also knew the danger was far from over. The horse came to a stop at last, likely in the city's central square, surrounded by a throng of Trojans. The men inside could feel the vibrations of footsteps, the occasional thump of a hand against the wood as someone marveled at its size. "It's a marvel," one Trojan shouted, his voice muffled but clear. "A gift from the gods." Then came the moment Father said he'd never forget, the moment he thought all was lost. As the Trojans reveled, a new voice cut through the noise. "Helen's." She walked around the horse, her steps deliberate, her presence commanding. Helen, the woman whose beauty had launched this war, now stood mere feet from the men who'd come to reclaim her. She began to call out names: Diomedes, Menelaus, Odysseus, her voice shifting, uncanny, mimicking the tones of their wives. "Diomedes, my love, are you there?" she sang, her words dripping with sweetness. "Menelaus, won't you come home to me?" Father said it was like a spell, her voice weaving through the wood, tugging at their hearts. Menelaus stiffened, his breath catching, and Anticlus, poor impulsive Anticlus, gasped, his mouth opening to respond. In that instant, Odysseus lunged, clamping his hand over Anticlus's mouth with a force that nearly crushed him. The young warrior's eyes widened, pleading, but Father held firm, his grip unrelenting. "Not a sound," he mouthed, his stare fierce. Helen lingered, circling the horse again, her voice teasing, testing. The men inside froze, their pulses racing, waiting for her to give up or call for the horse to be torn apart. Minutes stretched into eternity. At last, Helen's footsteps faded, her voice swallowed by the crowd. The Trojans, satisfied or perhaps distracted by their festivities, moved on. Father eased his hand from Anticlus's mouth, the young man trembling but silent. That, he told me later, was the most crucial moment. If she'd heard him, if they'd found us, Troy would still stand today. He admired Helen's cunning, even as he cursed it. She'd nearly undone them, her intuition sharper than any blade. But Odysseus was sharper still. Night fell over Troy, a blanket of stars cloaking the city in deceptive peace. The Trojans drank and danced, their guards lax, their spirits high. Inside the horse, the Greeks waited, their muscles cramped, their patience fraying. Father said the hours dragged like years, each man wrestling with doubt and exhaustion. The plan hinged on timing. Too soon, and they'd be overwhelmed. Too late, and the Trojans might grow suspicious. Odysseus kept them focused, his whispers cutting through the gloom. "We're the blade in their heart," he said. "Hold fast." At last, when the city grew quiet, the snores of drunken Trojans replacing their songs, he gave the signal. Sinon, still outside, had lit a beacon for the Greek army waiting beyond the walls. A sign the horse was inside. Now it was time to act. Odysseus and his men pried open the hidden trapdoor in the horse's belly, the wood creaking ominously. One by one they dropped to the ground, silent as shadows. The square was empty, save for a few slumped guards, wine cups still in hand. Father took the lead, his dagger flashing as he slit the throat of the nearest sentry. Diomedes and Menelaus fanned out, dispatching the others with ruthless precision. The air was cool, the silence eerie after the day's chaos. They moved like wolves, swift and deadly toward the city gates. The gates loomed ahead, massive and barred, a final barrier between Troy and its doom. Odysseus and his men worked quickly, heaving the bolts aside, their grunts muffled by the night. The gates swung open with a low groan, and beyond them, the Greek army poured in. Thousands of warriors who'd returned under cover of darkness, their ships hidden just out of sight. The Trojans awoke to chaos, screams, clashing steel, the roar of fire as the Greeks set the city ablaze. Father told me he stood atop the walls, watching Troy burn, the flames reflecting in his eyes. It was victory, he said, but it was also sorrow. War spares no one. By dawn, Troy was a ruin. Its towers crumbled, its people dead or enslaved, its glory reduced to ash. The Trojan horse, once a symbol of triumph for the Trojans, became their undoing, a testament to my father's brilliance. When he returned home after 20 years, he sat me down and told me this story, his voice heavy with memory. "Telemachus," he said, "I thought we were lost when Helen came. But I kept silent, and that silence won the war." I could hear the tension in his words, the pride mingled with weariness. He was a hero, yes, but he was also my father, a man who'd faced the impossible and come back to me. I could hear the tension in his words, the pride mingled with weariness. He was a hero, yes, but he was also my father, a man who'd faced the impossible and come back to me. As I recount this tale, I feel the weight of my father's journey in my chest. I wasn't there, hiding in that horse or storming those gates, but his words paint it so vividly I can almost smell the smoke, hear the crackle of burning Troy. I admire him, his mind, his courage, his will to endure. Growing up without him, I clung to rumors of his deeds. And when he finally returned, this story was the one that struck me deepest. It's not just about the fall of a city. It's about the man who made it happen, the father I long to know. Through his eyes, I see the war's end. And through mine, I hope you see it too.